Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
And welcome in Purple Daily, which of course also is Purple Access. Judd Zolgad, my colleague, my good friend Chip Scoggins from the Star Tribune, a columnist. Check out his work there. And Chip, we're going to get to Vikings Packers, Vikings Giants a bit. But before I do, I want to thank our sponsors, including TCL Television. If you're not watching sports on TCL TV, what are you doing? And of course, Surly. What has Surly Brewing meant in your life, Chip Scoggins? What has Surly meant to you as you sit down and watch your beloved Vols each Saturday when you can, at least?
It's a game changer. It's a game changer, no doubt. When you sit down and watch a football game, I can't even imagine the amount of Surly's consumed with this Viking season.
Oh my gosh, it's been incredible.
This has been a record-setting Viking season. I think it's been a record-setting Surly season with the number of Surly Furiouses consumed in the fourth quarter Vikings game. I would love to know the total there.
Between Surly Furious, the new Before I Die, which is of course the Vikings, the branded beer of a championship potentially. Yes, I bet it is a record amount. And of course, the favorite Surly beer of Chip Scoggins is the Surly Furious Tall Boys.
Yeah.
Nothing beats that one. So check them out, Surly Brewing. All right, Chip Scoggins. How surprised are you that the Vikings Packers game means something to the Packers? Because about a month ago or so, I thought they're going to be dead. Jordan Love might start this game. I didn't think that they would not try in this game, but I thought it would mean nothing. And I find it refreshing, and I am very glad that this game actually holds meaning to them as well, because I think it's going to be still a good test now.
Oh, yes, it's going to be fun. I mean, 3 weeks ago, we were thinking, okay, they're going to maybe shut down Rodgers, and Vikings are going to be sitting guys because this thing is wrapped up, and neither team really has a whole lot left to play for. Now, all of a sudden, there's a ton of interest and stakes in this game, and so it's always fun when they play, but when you have something on the line, really for both teams, I mean, the Vikings need to try to wrap up that 2 seed, because I think that's, getting as many home games as you can is going to be important. We see how valuable that crowd is for them, and then obviously the Packers trying to stay alive. So it's going to be fun. I can't wait to be there, and that's always my favorite trip every year for the Vikings. I love going over there, love the vibe, and this should be no different.
Yeah, great stadium. It's fun because it's passionate, but it's not really hatred. I've always found I think the Packers fans hate the Bears fans way more. I'm not saying that there isn't the occasional brawl, but it doesn't. Yeah. It always feels like there's much more of a meshing of the rivalry where it's contentious, but it doesn't cross that line.
No, it doesn't. Like if you're a Vikings fan wanting to go over, it doesn't feel dangerous. Like should I do this or
like Philadelphia does.
Philadelphia, like that. It's like we were there earlier this year, and like I felt like I could have counted on one hand the number of purple jerseys I saw in the stands, because it's just, why would you? So no, this is, I think it's, it's heated and contested, but I don't think it's to the point where, I still think it's in good fun. And I think Vikings fans that go over enjoy the experience.
All right. The Vikings. I have been trying to, this week I have been trying to wrap my head around the season. Okay. Because we covered some train wrecks. We covered some like this, the dysfunction puts, 2010 and 2016 and years like that on a different list. But here's the thing. And I've been trying to think of if there's a season that even comes close. When you look at how this team has won games, right? And again, on Saturday, the Giants get all those yards. Your defense, while I think it's improved somewhat, basically gives up a ton of yards, and you win it on a 61-yard field goal. And here's my last thought about that. It doesn't even come close to being your weirdest win of the season.
Yeah, no. I've long said that 2009 was most enjoyable and the funnest I've had.
Mm-hmm.
Most fun I had covering the Vikings team. Because that team was great. It had a lot of characters and Favre and the storylines, and you felt like that was a team that could go win the Super Bowl. This has probably been the most entertaining, the most dramatic, because of all the. Just think about how difficult it is to go 11-0 in one-score games. Yes. Like that's unheard of. And I was thinking about this. I was jotting it down. Been thinking about this since Sunday or Saturday when I played. If you just looked at the last 3 minutes of that game, that pretty much encapsulates their season. Like if you say, what has the Vikings season been like? I say, watch the last 3 minutes. Justin Jefferson beats two guys. Kirk Cousins getting hit while he throws, makes a great throw. Jefferson, they're smothering him, they're bracketing him. He still comes down with a touchdown catch. The defense comes back and gives up a 75-yard touchdown drive in less than a minute. Two big plays, just zoom. They zoom right down the field. Score, get the 2 point, we're tied. There's still time for Kirk. Makes a 3rd and 9. Just he's getting drilled, throws it out there. Jefferson makes a sliding catch.
Yep.
Then there's a sack. Okay, this thing's going overtime. Then there's a catch and run by Jefferson. Then there's a 61-yard field goal. It's like, that is their season. In a nutshell, those 3 minutes are their entire season in one, 3-minute segment. And
yes,
it's been the damnedest thing. I go back to, I don't know. The thing with one-score games is I don't know that they're a flip of the coin, but it just seems they even out, right? Sometimes you're going to win and sometimes you're going to lose.
Yeah, because you need fortune.
Yeah, sometimes you're just not going to come through in those moments, or the ball's going to bounce weird. Like you said, they're 11-0 in
right.
4 games. It's unbelievable.
Well, and the thing about it too is like on Saturday, because we saw this in training camp. So I guess coming out of training camp, it wouldn't have shocked me, but it did by the game against the Giants, is Greg Joseph making a 61-yard field goal. Yeah. Like it's the guys that are coming through that, Greg Joseph has not, he's hit like 1 or 2 all season between 50 and 59, and he makes a 61-yarder.
What was it earlier in the year where we were talking about, gosh, should they, cut him and find someone new because he couldn't make one over 50 yards? Wasn't he like, he missed like 5 in a row or 6 in a row from 50 plus
and he was
50?
missing PATs.
Yeah, and then you tried him out there and he drills a 61-yarder with a few yards to spare. I don't know. It's like, if you try to make sense of this season, they're spectacularly flawed in some ways and just spectacularly gifted and terrific in other ways.
Yes, and that's the weird thing is the comebacks, you can't, how can I put this? You can't discredit them. Like, you can't be like, oh, it's just all luck. It's all pure. Like you said, Kirk's making those throws to Jefferson while getting absolutely obliterated in a year in which, again, quarterbacks around the league are missing games by a scary amount of numbers based on the fact that backups aren't that good. Kirk Cousins has been hit the most of anybody and has missed, I think, 1 snap.
And that's the thing. It's like,
that's toughness.
His toughness is, it's almost like we take it for granted now, but you look around and see how many quarterbacks go out, whether it's concussions, whether it's whatever, that missed time, and he's getting drilled. He hangs in there. I mean, those 2 plays I mentioned, the touchdown pass to Jefferson, and I know there are others in the game, but then that 3rd and 9, that when he just threw to a spot and Jefferson slid into the catch. I mean, he got obliterated right in the midsection, right up the gut. And he just hangs in there and keeps coming back. I mean, I don't think we credit his toughness enough, but and I think the whole luck thing is that storyline should be squashed because these are big time gut check plays that they're making, and it's not like a ball's bouncing and they're coming down. No, these are on money plays that they're coming up with. So it's been I think the most entertaining season that I can remember covering.
The closest I can come to describing, to go back to your point about 2009 is it would be like if that team won 3 or 4 games with the Favre to Lewis week 3 play against San Fran. Because like that wasn't a fluke. It was an unbelievable throw and one of the great catches I've seen, but it wasn't a fluke. But it was also like, okay, you can't do that too much, right? This team's like, screw it. We'll just keep doing it in Jefferson in Buffalo, Jefferson on Saturday with Kirk. Like you go back through and you look at the catches and you look at the plays, and it's just this phenomenal clutch gene that ordinarily, if you see it like 3 times, you're like, okay, that's pretty good, but you can't do it too much.
But the thing that makes it so just I can't even imagine like Vikings fans that are just live and die with this team because of the roller coaster with the defense will give up that drive where you like when Jefferson scores, you're like, all right, they got an 8-point lead, and then it's like, no, just right down the field and scores. Just like, really, you can't just one time just not have it come down this way, or so that like the sack that puts them in a 3rd and whatever it was, 3rd and forever before Jefferson had that catch and run to get to 61 yards. Yep. It just feels like they live on this cliff, on this edge of this cliff the whole time. And it's like, you keep waiting for them to fall off, and one foot slips off, and then they just like, someone pulls them back in, pulls them back over the ledge. This whole season's just been played on the ledge, it feels like to me.
Yeah, and the weirdest thing about that is, and this is totally my fault because I just didn't think it was possible. If you had come to me in training camp and said, okay, they're going to win a ton of 1-score games, the offense is going to have to be clutch, and among the most clutch players is going to be Kirk, I'd say, get real. There's no way. Like, we haven't seen anything in his career. This is the thing that I think people don't get. If Kirk Cousins had been Mr. Clutch and won a ton of games in Washington and then came here and it sort of fizzled, you'd be like, okay, totally Zimmer. It was all Mike Zimmer. But there is nothing in his past, including a year with O'Connell, at least on the coaching staff in Washington, there's nothing in his past that predicted this.
Yeah, I would say consistently, because we've seen, we saw the New Orleans playoff game where that was clutch.
But
what was the stat last year? There's 6 and 8 1-score games.
You think that's right? Yeah. And he did make some plays. I'm just saying,
so to moments
all the time.
Well, that's it, over and over and every week.
Yeah, you're right.
It's consistently to the point where if it doesn't happen now, you're like, really? You just sort of expected he's going to, you've left him too much time and he's going to bail them out here. And it is phenomenal when they get in those moments, just this thing that he has with Jefferson right now. It is, sometimes you watch games when you see great players are like, and they put on performances like, yeah, that guy wasn't going to lose tonight. We're seeing that from Jefferson all the time with these catches. Like, he's just not going to lose in those situations. And whatever it takes to get a play done, you can bracket him, you can drill him, you can, try to knock him out of the game or whatever, and he's just going to keep coming with a phenomenal catch. That's why I know we talked about last week, but Judd, if he is not in the top 3 of MVP voting, something's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing about him too is this. So on Kirk, I was totally wrong. Like I will fully admit I never saw this coming in any way. The fact that he could be clutch occasionally, sure. The fact that he could be clutch and basically sacrifice statistical success for this, I'm shocked by.
Yeah.
On Jefferson, though, to go back to last year, this is where we were all right, which is this whole notion of, well, he's covered. You can't do this. He's covered. That play, the touchdown against the Giants on Saturday, is a play that that they wouldn't have run, or they wouldn't have attempted that for the first 10 weeks. Even Kirk was saying early on, Justin's covered, he's covered, I'll go elsewhere. That's now not true.
Yeah, the Giants had him played inside coverage, and the safety was coming down to help, and he still splits them and gets, again, Kirk hangs in there and gets the just blasted right in the midsection as he's throwing it. and then Jefferson just finds a way to beat two guys and they collide. It's just even if he's doubled, and I give Kirk credit, I give Wes Phillips credit, I give KOC credit that they knew, and it's been happening from day one that, okay, he's going to get a lot of attention, he's going to get doubled. Not to fall into temptations like, all right, let's go elsewhere then. It's like, no, wait, he's not the first wide receiver in history to be double covered. So it's still fine. And they've been creative, and they've said, you know what, we'll still trust him to get open and make plays. And that's the other thing to talk about is, his MVP resume is like, this is against defenses that are designed to take him out.
Yes.
And he's still putting up historic numbers. I mean, these defenses are doing everything in their power to try to eliminate him from the equation. They still can.
And that definitely changed at some point, though, Chip, because there was, I remember, I think it was around week 5 or 6 where Kirk was still saying, at least publicly, hey, if Justin's covered, I'm not gonna make a dumb throw. He's now making, and look, this is, somebody's finally told him, dude, you got the arm, you can make the throw, and he can. And that's a credit to him totally. But he is now making, I think, what he once considered to be irresponsible throws. And then to what you're saying, Justin Jefferson's catching them.
Yeah.
He's consistently catching them. And as the season has progressed, in my opinion, he has improved. He's only improved.
Yeah. Well, he's getting better. Yeah. And the confidence and the trust factor and that, Cousins said, it's just the more you're with somebody, the more you're going to trust and know what they're going to do. So you're more willing to take those chances, if that's the right word. I don't even know if it's a chance, though. Jefferson's just the right play.
Right. It's the right read when it's not the right read. That's the impossible thing about it.
But you're right. I think, but it's like anything, Judd. It's like Cousins is wired to think, okay, that looks like trouble, I'm going to go here. But the more you have confidence going into those situations and throwing there, and you're having success, and they work, and then it works again, and then it works again. It just gives you confidence to say, you know what, I can do this. That's not a risky throw, or it's not a throw you shouldn't make, or it's not the wrong read. And so I just think it's been reinforced that the success that they've had to keep going to that, even if it's his nature to think, that's kind of a risky throw.
The incredible thing too, and again, this is a very difficult transition, especially to make once camp is done, but the Vikings did, is think about this one. So Thielen, who was once Cousins' just absolute favorite target, could rely on him. He can't run basically. And his play is declining. It's clearly, and I don't know if he sits out, gets some rest, comes back in 2023. I don't know if he's just cooked. But you make the Hockenson trade for a tight end in season, which is, again, we're told, you don't make trades in this league during the season because guys can't adapt. And you look at what that change has meant, because I really think that the routes that TJ ran in having a fantastic game against the Giants were Thielen's routes. And so that's now, like, all of these things are things that previous administrations, and we've been told that is a no-go. If I came to you with the stats, if I didn't show you the score, so if I did the blind box score test on that Giants game, and I showed you Thielen stats, I showed you Jefferson stats, I didn't show you Hawkinson's, and I showed you the defensive yards allowed by the Vikings.
Yeah.
What would you guess the score of that game was?
Yeah, not what it was.
Who won?
Yeah. Well, but you add Hockenson, and now it feels like this is the offense we thought we were going to see. Remember early in the year, it's just like it was just not there. And it's probably still not as consistent as they want, but credit Kwesi for saying, you know what, we're not just going to sit pat and just hope this thing gets better. He saw a need when Irv was out. He saw that, maybe he thought the Thielen injury or whatever, is going to not allow him to be that number 2 that we've seen. And so he went out and got this incredible tight end who's That to me has been the biggest thing. We hear like, you got to have OTAs, you got to have summer, you got to go to Cousins' house and work with him to build this trust.
Yes.
It's like the first third down, TJ's here, he throws the ball to him, he hadn't stopped throwing it to him. He trusts him. Like, it just tells you, if you have a great player who gets open, the quarterback's going to find him. And, you know, I know they want to run the ball a little bit better and more consistently than they have, but it's hard to find fault with the way this offense is functioning right now when you have two really high level, as a receivers. I'll put Hockenson in there, two receivers playing it the way they are.
On Irv Smith too, Chipper, I wonder, so, you know, he got hurt and that sort of forced them, but I wonder if they also just saw enough. Because he wasn't doing, I mean, if you bring him back, if you say he doesn't get hurt and the Hockenson trade is not made, he does not. And I was an apologist. I liked him a lot, but he does not do what Hockenson has done. And I don't think he comes close. So I also think the injury provided the obvious cover to make the trade. Yeah. But I think they also had seen enough through camp to be like, okay, this isn't probably what we thought. And then Hockenson is probably twice what they thought possible.
Yeah. I mean, are you saying would they made this deal if Irv doesn't get hurt? I doubt it.
But I'm saying the injury, unfortunately, was a blessing in disguise because I think they also saw enough of Irv to say this isn't really what we thought he was going to be, and Hockenson exceeds that expectation.
Yeah, and he had, Irv had not shown. Now that's not to say he wouldn't have been, a larger piece of the puzzle than what we had seen previously as he got. But I find it hard to believe he would put up the numbers that Hockenson is, just because I think Hawkinson's a terrific player. I mean, he's a Pro Bowl player.
Yes, he is a hybrid new age receiver. He's not a tight end.
No, yeah, I mean
he's not a tight end. Irv, unfortunately, sort of turned out to be. I thought he would be a hybrid, but he was more of a. I don't know. There's something
they envisioned him when they drafted him. That's what they envisioned him being.
They did
the hybrid, but and then we've seen. I think there's only so many plays in a game, but we've seen what Osborne can do. I think he's a legit option for them. It's just when you're giving so many passes to Jefferson and Hockenson, and then you still got to hand the ball off some. There's only so many in a game, so many plays, but I think this offense is really. That's why it's fascinating what the playoff scenarios could be, because they have their vulnerabilities, and we've known it. We've seen it every week. But you also wonder if, Jefferson can have one of those games where he just takes over, and Hockenson has one of those games, and it's like, well, it just feels like they can win a shootout.
And think about what you're saying. A wide receiver, like think about this.
Yeah, I know.
Could take over a game. He has no control of how he gets the ball, and he could take over a game. And I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, think about that.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like we saw it in the last 3 minutes, Sunday or Saturday. He took over that game. Obviously Buffalo. So we'll it comes down to defense, and the final drive was not good, but I think there was a couple of encouraging things. I felt like Daniil finally started to look like Daniil again.
Yes, he has. In the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I feel like he's finally started to look at, for whatever reason that is. I don't know.
I think because they're now using him in a role in which he looks like himself. I think it's schematic. I think it's schematics at this point.
Excuse me, I had to sneeze again. That's kind of become my weekly staple. I wasn't at the game, and I watched it on TV. And was it Mark Schlereth?
Yes.
He had a comment that said, it had to come from production. That said that O'Connell had a meeting, and told Donatel that if I was going against your defense, this is what I do. You're being too predictable. You need to be more unpredictable and bring more pressure. And I mean, I don't think it's I didn't see what the blitz numbers were. I mean, the previous week it was what, 40%?
And it had been like 16. average until the game before that, when I think they went up to 30%.
And I didn't see. Did you see the numbers for this game yet?
I have not seen them yet,
but it felt like they brought more than 16%. But and maybe that's because Daniil's been more active. Maybe that's because Daniil's getting. It just feels like they're getting more pressure. But I felt like he's starting to look like the Daniil of old. And that
100%.
Remember, you go back to week 1, they're playing the Packers, and that was to me the story of the game. It was Daniil and Za'Darius, and the how uncomfortable they made Rodgers look that night.
Exactly right. So Chipper, you've known me for a long time, right? And you know that Judd loves his sports. He loves his beer, but the one thing that he can't do is fix a thing. He can't fix anything. And you are probably the same, because us in this side of the business are absolutely incapable of the DIY. Well, it takes only one call to our friends at Finch Home Solutions to get any electrical issues in your home solved, Chipper. In fact, you know what? Hot tub. Let's say you want to surprise the wife with a hot tub installed in the cold, in the dead of winter. Guess what? That takes some electrical work first. Finch is there. Let's say you got some problems in the basement, flickering lights, which, by the way, you shouldn't ignore. Don't wait until something goes wrong. Finch offering a free home safety inspection to all of our listeners. Be sure to tell them you heard about Finch on Score North. Special deals for those who watch all of our shows. Call them 612-357-2604 or visit finchhomesolutions.com. That's 612-357-2604. finchhomesolutions.com to take care of those things that people like Chip and myself for sure can't. Back to Jefferson for a second. I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You've covered this team in a lot of roles, like me, for a long time. Where does the Jefferson season right now rank as far as the most dominant? So not just the best, but the most dominant seasons that you've seen from a player, where, again, I remind you, I think it's a remarkable thing to say that any offensive player who's not a quarterback can dominate and take over potentially a playoff game, but I don't disagree. So that's I guess that's the plateau, or that's what I'm looking for. Where do you put what you've seen from Jefferson with 2 games left in the regular season?
Well, 1 and 1A with Adrian, the MVP season. I mean, what Adrian did that year was remarkable. I mean, he put that team, Christian Potter is a quarterback, and they're going to the playoffs, and coming off the injury, and just to put that team, that offense on his shoulders and produce that type of season was a singular dominant performance. And I feel that way watching Jefferson. I feel like when I watched Peterson that night, that year, is like, no matter what the defense does, they're not going to stop him. He's going to be able to do his thing. I feel that way with Jefferson right now. Like you see the way their teams are defending him, bracket coverage, double, being physical, really trying to hit him, and rattle him. And he's just better than everybody he's going against. And yes, he needs somebody to throw on the ball, and we can't discount what Cousins is doing in terms of getting him the ball.
Agreed.
But those two, to me, in the years that I've covered them, are the 2 most. A notch below that, I think the year that Jared Allen almost broke the record. He was pretty hard to block that year, but
was that the 3-13 team? That
was the bad team. Yeah, really bad season.
So I think you got to make a difference in
exactly
the record.
That's why it's like,
yeah.
But if you're just looking like individual dominating the game, that's why I say it's a notch below there, or 2 notch, or whatever you want to say. But the Peterson MVP this year with Jefferson are just, in my time at least, and I didn't cover Moss in '98. I didn't his prime years. I can't think of another 2 individual performances like these.
I think it's so. I think the 3 that I found were Moss in 2000, and was it 3 or 4? He had an unbelievable year, statistically off the charts. He was great.
Yeah, I didn't cover that team. Yeah,
and I didn't. I was in Green Bay at the time. That year, the Peterson year, which was 2012, and this.
12, yeah.
And after the Giants game, I wrote this. I think that this is the most impressive I've seen, and here's why: the level of success and record. So Peterson lifted a team by himself and gets full credit for that. But that was a wild card team. It lost its first playoff game. Now, we don't obviously know how this team is going to do once the playoffs start. But the point is Peterson took what wasn't a very good team and lifted it. But it wasn't record-wise this good. Same thing with Moss. The year that he was great, it wasn't this good. What just blows my socks off here is if you take Jefferson off this team and you look at the defense, I mean, they're probably with Kirk below 500, right around there at the very, very best. Like this team is functioning at a high, at a extremely high win total. They've won 11 one-score games. Jefferson, Buffalo, Jefferson Saturday. We can go through them. I think that this ends up being the most impressive single season performance based not just on his performance, but what it's meant, and that this team record-wise has been phenomenal.
Well, that's what might tip the scales too, and we'll see how the season ends. But it's a couple things. It's it's not just the production, and that's it's historic. It's you're setting records here, but to me, it's the signature moments.
Yes,
that is what separates. It's like the moments when that separate winning from losing, and you need to play. He's going to making them. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Buffalo catch, obviously, but Judd, if he doesn't make that sliding 3rd and 9 catch there Sunday, do they win? That's going overtime probably, or if something crazy could happen. If he doesn't make that catch and run to set up the 61-yard field goal, that's going overtime. And it feels like there's been he's had these moments in every game. It feels like, because every game is close, it feels like he has a signature moment where you're like, oh my gosh, he just did something remarkable. So to me, that's it. It's not just the production, but it's these massive plays that are putting the team in position to win, that swings the, and maybe, again, that's why I think he should be a strong, legitimate MVP candidate. And that's why, I mean, the Peterson thing is it's hard to discredit. I think so much of the allure of that one is coming off that injury and the rehab. I mean, it was win MVP coming off an ACL injury.
Absolutely.
If a different conversation than what we're having with Jefferson, but those two are just the two finest individual performances I've seen. You go back in all sports here, the KG year, that was a phenomenal year. I'm trying to think of others, maybe the Mauer year but they.
Yeah. Well, I go back to some of what Puck did, and again, the thing with Puck was
that's in its own level,
and those were
category there,
and that was clutch gene. Like that's the thing is like you can have a great year, and it doesn't amount to much, or you can have a great year and that's the thing is if Jefferson does will them to playoff wins. Now he goes to a different stratosphere.
100%.
But I don't doubt him for 1 second. There's nothing about him that I look at and say, "Oh, wait till the pressure's on."
No.
I think he comes through.
I mean, and we've been around those athletes that just, again, I go back to it. It's hard to explain and say like those guys just refuse to lose, and if they lose, it's not going to be because they didn't perform to the standard. It's just like, you feel like he's going to be in a playoff game at his best, and I'll be surprised if he's not.
Moss 2003 was the year chipper. 111 receptions, 1,632 yards, 17 touchdowns.
Wow, yeah. So what do you have in 98? What was his?
Hold on a second, I can tell you. In 1998, he had 69 catches for 1,313 yards, 17 touchdowns.
That was the
So here's the one last thing. Here's the one thing that to me is the most intriguing thing about Jefferson's 2022. So Moss was unbelievable, but he had Carter, who did a lot of work, a ton of work, and Jake Reed, who was really good. It appears to me that Jefferson is essentially serving in about 2 to 3 roles by himself, because he's not just a deep threat. In fact, he's more of a chunk threat. He's making catches where he absolutely gets himself destroyed, which Moss never enjoyed. I mean, Justin Jefferson, it's sadistic, but he almost seems to enjoy it. He just bounces right back up. He's playing. He's playing the slot role at times. He's playing the outside role at times. Like, that's the thing that's so impressive, is these are different skill sets, and he has them all.
Well, that's what I say. Different is like he can beat you different ways. It's not just go route. It's not just whatever. He can beat you. We see him catch screens, and we just saw that. To set up that field goal. Intermediates. Across the middle. On go routes. Throw the ball up 50-50. He's going to come down with. When he gets drilled on a hit, he hangs onto the ball. When he's, tough, tight, contested, he comes down with it. There's just like really nothing he can't do right now. And again, so that's, that to me is the mark of a special player. Like,
yes,
when couple things, when you need him most, he comes through, which he's doing in clutch moments. And that when teams are doing everything in their power, I guarantee you, defense coordinators, when they sit down on Monday morning or whenever they start mapping it out, they're like, okay, what are we going to do about Jefferson?
Yeah.
Like, it starts there, and then everything builds around that. And they can't stop him.
He's going to force teams to rethink how they defend and how they draft personnel, which is the last guy, at least, who wore a Vikings jersey, was Moss. Because in the 99 draft, the Packers, with their first 3 picks, took big defensive backs. That's what Jefferson's going to do. And you know what? So the Giants play that he caught the touchdown pass on is a perfect example. So the Giants think our cornerback can get inside leverage on JJ. And Jefferson's like, no. And if you watch the first step, so he's playing press coverage. He never gets a hand. But he doesn't get a hand on him because Jefferson's footwork is so good. You're going to need to rethink. You're almost going to have to take your chances and grab him off the line. Like, grab him quickly. And because if you try and just press him, he just moved around you like a basketball player going to the net.
Well, we've seen, you've seen as the season gone on, teams are trying to be more physical with him. That's
right.
Obvious. You can see the way, whether it's grabbing, holding, big hits, but that's not working either. So, I don't, it'll be interesting to see kind of what thing defense, because they're going to spend all offseason, thinking up ways, because that's what they do. But that play was remarkable because it was press coverage and the guy was trying to take away the inside.
He never touched him. Jefferson made 2 moves. Again, it's like a basketball player. He made 2 moves and went. And the guy, not only did the press not work, it actually made things worse because now the guy's trailing him without getting the jam.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, but you had the safety coming down for help, he thought, or he did. And that was to no effect either. It's remarkable.
I think the physical play is going to need to be before he touches the ball. It doesn't matter like now, oh man, I knocked his block off. Okay, congratulations. You just gave up a first down. I think what they're going to need to do is make sure that they find a way to essentially interfere with his progress before he ever gets the ball.
Yeah, but that's hard. If he's so elusive with his footwork and you miss, now you're in real trouble.
You got to spin him, dude. You got to spin him. You got to grab the belt and spin him. You got to grab him and take your chance with the flag. I'm telling you right now.
I think O'Connell's going to be sitting. If they did that, I think
you know what? Kevin can go. That's fine. You got to spin him. Thanks, Chip Scoggins.
All right, brother. We'll see you.
Talk to you next week.